You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hi, I'm Mess, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Ryan, and you're listening to an Outcast episode of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast. So this episode goes a little out of the ordinary that we do here at the Iterators of the Imperium podcast, where we normally stick to a topic, but in these Outcast episodes, we really just talk about whatever that you guys suggest. And this episode has actually been requested by a guy called or a girl, we don't discriminate, Pineapple 4112. What a name. So, yeah. Well, what are we talking about today, Ryan?
Sorry,
that was a good
really
intro,
enjoyed your, we don't discriminate, but you had said nothing discriminatory.
I just wanted to make that clear for the audience, right? We don't discriminate.
We don't discriminate. Totally irrelevant to point out, but we don't. So, I mean, I guess it's good to make that clear. Fine. Never came up before. It's good to mention.
I'll tell you, a lot of big profiles, they wish that they could have made a statement like that previously in the career. I'll tell you that for sure.
You know what, right? I'm happy to be the guys that voluntarily point out that they're not discriminatory at every turn they get. Yes. I'm okay with being those guys. Yeah, so we were specifically asked to talk about Arjac Rockfist, and that's exactly what we're going to do today, which seems like a fun idea to me. Because I'm a big fan of Arjac, right? He is one of these characters that he turns up in a lot of books, right? And a lot of stories and a lot of storylines, stuff like that. But he's kind of like a secondary character, if you get what I mean, right? He's very rarely like the main point of what's going on. He's very rarely the big dog of the situation. But the reason for that is that he is the bodyguard, like the personal bodyguard of the Great Wolf, of the Space Wolves. So he's like the bodyguard to the chapter master, right? So every time he turns up somewhere, typically he's at the heels of the big boss of the Space Wolves, you know? So when he does turn up, he's usually kind of in the shadow of this other guy's reputation just by sheer nature of the situation, which kind of leaves him sitting in the shadows a little bit, you know, even though he's quite an amazing character in himself. So he does have one novel specifically about him. It's kind of a short book. Like it's not a proper novel. It's a short story kind of thing. And it's kind of just his origins. And otherwise, he just turns up in a bunch of other things. So I wanted to talk about how this guy, this one random dude, became who he is. I think you're going to enjoy this. Because I think there's not a lot to say about him after that, because he's a tank, and he follows the Great Wolf around, keeping him alive. But you're like, because he's not the main character after that, you're like, there's not much to say after the origin story, and it's very unfortunate. I'm hoping that we get a book soon where he gets to like go off on his own and do his thing, but until such time,
I feel like they are leading up to that, because like I don't know who else in Warhammer has that many nicknames, or not nicknames, but like are known for specific things. Like this guy is huge, right?
Yeah, he's gigantic. He's a man mountain.
Well, that is one of the names he's been called, right?
Yeah.
I do have the list, by the way, if you want to...
Oh, yeah, I remember, yeah. So, yeah, I think going through his list of titles is a good place to start. Would you like to go through the list of titles?
Well, I feel like this is like a WWE representation. And now, in the left corner, is Arjac Rockfist, also known as the Man Mountain, Grim Norse Champion, and the Anvil of Fenris.
Yeah.
Weighing in at, I don't know how much a mountain weighs.
An ass load. 10 metric shit tons.
Weighing in at the scale broke. Okay.
Yeah, that's basically it. This dude is like off the charts, an absolute beast of a dude. But he is like the most humble guy ever, right? There's a whole thing where like when he was kind of like new-ish to the Space Wolves, right? All of his brothers kind of had like a side eye on him because they all thought he like wasn't really one of them, right? Because, like, the whole thing with Space Wolves is that they are like Vikings. So their traditions are, like, storytelling by a fire and things like that, and drinking a lot and, you know, things like that, right? Martial kind of competitions and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and Arjac doesn't brag about every little thing he's done, and he doesn't feel the need to boast and things like that. He's quite stoic, quite quiet, right? Quite reserved. So his brothers were all left kind of half suspicious of him. Like, is he even really one of us? Like, I know he's, like, bigger than all of us, so he's clearly some kind of space marine, but, like, are we sure this guy got, like, the Space Wolves gene seed? Sure they didn't accidentally give him someone else's? So he never quite fit in with his brothers because he wasn't as boastful and, you know, outlandish as the rest of them. But
yeah.
that aside, right, this man had plenty to brag about, alright? I want to make this clear, right? Not only is he possibly the largest space marine in the galaxy, and that's including the Primaris, right? Because the Primaris stand like a foot taller than the rest of them usually. This guy is bigger than them, right? He is a giant. Right? If you stood him next to Alpharius or Omegon, you probably wouldn't know which one was the Primarch, right? Because Alpharius is the shortest of the Primarchs. I'm telling you, I think there's a good chance Arjac is taller than him.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but just as a list, I'll give you a quick run through a few things this dude had to brag about, right? Because this guy had plenty to boast about and to tell stories about. So, for the record, he does have not only the size of a mountain, but he has like the constitution of a mountain. Right? Nothing can kill this guy. Right? He's immensely survivable. I don't know how, but he is. Right? So,
phrasing.
For example, during the blooding ritual, right, where they, it's when you are trying to become a space wolf. Part of the ritual is that you get kind of cast out into the wilderness and have to make your way back to the Fang, or to the base.
Yes.
Right? But you're doing this like naked and with no equipment. So it's a proper, like, old school Spartans kind of ritual where you just get cast into the wilderness. But obviously, the entire planet of Fenris is trying to kill you because there's somehow blizzards, lava, and giant sea monsters everywhere. So during that, during his blooding, there was this horrendous blizzard. Like, even the space wolves were looking out at this blizzard going, "Ew, it looks rough." Right? And they're, like, in armor. Like, they're already super soldiers and they're in armor, and they're looking out at this blizzard going, we know what beauty in that.
Glad that's not me. Glad that's not me.
But obviously, you've just got Arjac marching through it like it's nothing. Like, yeah, nice brisk walk. So like,
Just a nice
he was
walk
bloody
in the snow.
fine. Like, I think he was like the only aspirant of that particular blooding that was caught in that blizzard that survived.
Oh God.
Yeah. Also, at one point, he gets a disease called the Vile Heart Pox, which is one of the diseases made by Nurgle's witches. So this is like a weird warp-based disease. Arjac was infected with this and just recovered. Right? Like, what? That shouldn't even be possible. That should have fucked him up. Nah, he was fine. Dude basically just walked off.
Deceased, no reaction.
There is also one point. This one is actually after he's already became a space marine, all that kind of stuff. But he actually was caught in like a Tyranid assault. And you know what the Tyranids are like? They just come on in waves and waves of space bugs, right? And they'll just crawl over their dead. Arjac managed to pile the bodies of the dead Tyranids so high that it became a barricade and blocked the Tyranid advance.
Damn.
Yeah, he just used them to block the doorway. It's like, fuck you guys. Yeah. He's some dude, I'll be honest with you. There is also one more situation that just speaks to his character, which is that a bunch of the Space Wolves were on one of their kind of void ships, as is typical, and they got attacked. And as their ship was like burning around them, Arjac was like, I'm not leaving until like if there's anyone still alive on here. So he's just yeeting like half dying, bleeding space marines into escape pods before he gets in one himself. He cleared the place out. There was not one living space wolf left alive on this fucking ship that could have exploded at any second. He was willing to die to save already injured troops.
What a man.
What a guy.
What a guy. What a lad.
Also, you'll probably have seen this picture at Arjac. He's a fucking big dude. He's a bit of a beast.
I've seen it, yeah.
Just to give you a bit more vague information about him. So his hammer and shield that he has, the shield it's a storm shield. That's the type of shield it is. But his one in particular is called the Anvil shield.
Yeah.
Because that way he's got the hammer and the anvil, which is the whole thing. But it's just a larger version of a normal storm shield. It had to be bigger to be usable by him because of his sheer size. So they just I think he probably specially made an even larger version of a storm shield that he can just use as a battering ram. Just hunkers behind it and charges through the enemies.
He made it himself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What can't he do, Ryan?
Well, that's the thing. Not a lot. And see the hammer, right? It's called faux hammer, which is pretty cool. And it was originally his smithing hammer. He's severely modified it to the current day, but that is the weapon. He carries his own blacksmithing hammer as a brutal melee weapon into combat. Also, it's based on Mjolnir from the Norse mythology.
Oh, yeah.
Because he built a teleporter into it that's linked to his gauntlet, so he can throw it at the enemy and then just have it rematerialize in his hand.
What did you call it, Ryan?
Mjolnir. Sorry, I apologize. I'm not Danish. Would you like to say it properly?
Mjolnir.
Thank you. I'll work on that.
Hey,
I was closer than a lot of people are, okay?
I mean, you are closer than a lot of people are. I think you have to be from, a Scandinavian country, essentially.
I would think correctly, so, right?
Yeah. Mjolnir.
I'll try to get it. You can coach me on how to say it properly, just in case. It might come up again, you never know.
Some use. I finally had some use. Let's go.
So, in summary, this guy is an absolute unit, and he's one of these legends that they tell stories about around campfires.
Yes.
But today, we are going to talk about how he became this legend, his origin stories, if you will.
Okay.
So, as is typical of Space Wolves aspirants, he was born into one of the kind of nomadic tribes on Fenris. And it was the Bear Claw tribe, not that it really matters, though. But even as a child, this dude was fucking gigantic, right? He's always been fucking big, right? He didn't have a growth spurt when he became a space marine. This dude was huge before that. And he also was a blacksmith for this tribe. He learned when he was really young how to be a blacksmith. So, obviously, being that the Fenrisians are nomadic warring tribes, blacksmiths are quite well respected. Because obviously they make all the weapons and armor that keep you alive when the sea monsters come for you. So, pretty important. And there's a whole thing with, the gods of iron, right? Which is fun. So, blacksmiths on Fenris worship these things called the gods of iron. What they actually are is iron priests. They're the tech priests of the Space Wolves, right? But obviously, normal Fenrisian people don't know that that's what they are. They just think they're these gods of craftsmanship that live on these volcanic isles and all that kind of stuff, which is quite cool. So there's a solid chance that Arjac actually would have worshipped these gods before he became an aspirant, because he wouldn't have known, right? There's a whole thing where a lot of the times Iron Priest apprentices are recruited because they make a pilgrimage to these isles to meet their gods, and are then put into the trials. They're given a test, and then they're put into the trials to become a Space Wolf, to become specifically an Iron Priest. But that's weirdly not how Arjac did it. Arjac was actually just recruited the same way that a normal warrior for the Space Wolves would have been. But it was only once he was recruited that they realised he was an incredible craftsman and decided to make him an apprentice. So this is quite an odd situation. Because he has like nearly unrivaled smithing skills. His eye for detail is incredible. He just really cares about what he does, really takes some pride in it, you know? But it was like immediately after he finished his blooding, so after getting back through the massive blizzard that definitely should have killed him, and being accepted as like a proper space wolf, the High Iron Priest, which was a guy called Hengist Blackhand, he goes and he like finds Arjac and he basically demands that he becomes an apprentice for the Iron Priests. He's like, I've seen what you can make and I've seen that you're an absolute beast. You're coming with me, kid. So, obviously, Arjac finishes his, the process of becoming a Space Marine while also apprenticing with the Iron Priests. And once he actually has all the implants and he's like a fully fledged Space Marine, he's obviously a giant among giants, which is hilarious. But there's an extra bit if you want to become an Iron Priest. So the same rule for all tech priests, all tech Marines within any chapter is you have to go actually train on Mars to do the tech bit, right? So like they train you to do the Marine part, then they send you away to learn the tech part. Then you come back and you can do both, right? So once he's, fully fledged giant super soldier, he gets sent out to Mars to go learn to be a tech priest. And he's there for years, right? But while he's there, obviously, he has to learn all the kind of tech side of it, which is like weapon maintenance. It's like battlefield engineering, right? So it's everything from like armor and weaponry and some vehicular maintenance and stuff like that, to like anything that would be on like a void ship he will know about. He might not know how to build a void ship, but he can sure as hell like, turn some systems back on and shit like that. Like, all that kind of stuff. He can get some stuff working again. So it's quite a generalized thing, but it's not like they're not going to teach you about ancient archaic technology. They're going to teach you how to do the things that you're going to need to do as a Space Marine, right?
Yeah.
But you need, like, we can't spare, like tech priests to keep, like, 100,000 crazy wolfmen's fucking armor working. So we're going to train you to do that part, and it'll take, like, a year, right? So it's that kind of stuff. It's shit to keep the chapter going, but not, like, the crazy tech sorcery side of it. So yeah, eventually he becomes, a proper Iron Priest when he returns from Mars. Yeah. And so once he gets back, he obviously is a fully fledged Iron Priest now, and Arjac was seen as this prodigy. I was gonna say prodigal son. That's not the term. He was seen as like a prodigy, like at an anvil, because he was like an incredible craftsman. Even on Mars, they thought he was like a prodigy. Right? Like he was outdoing tech priests that have been making guns and swords and stuff for like centuries. So he's a pretty impressive dude when it comes to this stuff. But once he returns and he, goes back to start his whole Iron Priest thing, there is this, like, it's like paying your dues, right? The first kind of year or so, you just kind of make swords and stuff, right? You just sit and hammer out metal on an anvil. You're not doing anything too fancy. And it's because of the Space Wolves break weapons all the fucking time. So they do need them, but, like, servitors and serfs can make swords that are good enough. They don't have to be master crafted because they're going to break them anyway because they're fucking barbarians, right? But when you become a new Iron Priest, the idea is that you pay your dues by just sitting pumping out swords and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's basically just to instill a bit of work ethic in you and put everyone on the same level playing field. We've all done our part in this, lower level of this kind of hang. And Arjac fucking loved it, right? It was just a bigger anvil now. It was like being a kid. He loved it. Now, there's a whole thing where he does this for a while, but not the full time he should have been, before eventually the High Iron Priest, Hengist Blackhand, comes to him and is like, I have a job for you, right? You're being wasted on this menial stuff, right? And like, we all know the rule is that we all do this for like a year or two to get onto the same level. But, like, we have fucking serfs that can do this shit, right? Like, we have an actual job for you. And what it is that there are a load of relics of the chapter that have been damaged in combat, right? So, like, weaponry and armor that belong to, like, previous Great Wolves and stuff like that. That are just lying in disrepair in the treasure vaults of the Fang. And that High Iron Priest comes to Arjac and says that he has a particular relic he wants him to work on, but first he's going to give him a less important one to use as, like, a test, right? Because he believes that Arjac has, like, the eye for detail to fix these things properly, to do them, like, honor and respect. So, initially, he gives him a set of armor that belonged to a previous a previous Great Wolf, right? The guy died in the armor, but in the process, the armor was fairly damaged. It was, like, acid burned and perforated and a lot of other things, because it was Tyranids the guy died fighting. So it was a bit fucked up by the end of it. And it's just kind of this, like, you know, half-scorched, totally unfunctional suit of giant Terminator armor. And he's like, fix that and then come and talk to me. So, yeah, it was the armor of Arjac Granite Brow, which is a hell of a name.
Watson.
But if Arjac can fix it...
Man.
What?
Nah, it's just Warhammer names. It's just
it
Warhammer
really
names.
is, right? It seemed like a proper dwarf from, like, Lord of the Rings name to me. It sounded like a dwarf king. So Arjac just kind of accepts the job. He's like, I'll fix the armor, you know? And he spends months at an anvil, like in the forges, working on this armor, right? Because it's not just like reforging it to the right shape and fixing the detailing. It's like he's got to rewire half of it and replace servos that make it move properly, and you know what I mean? It's a whole thing, right? It's engineering in every possible sense. It's not just like blacksmithing. So he spends months working on this stuff. And he never leaves the forge in all these months. The serfs just bring him food and stuff. And then after all these months, Arjac walks into, like, the great feasting hall, right? And all of his brothers are there, all feasting and drinking. And at the long table at the top, where Russ would have sat at one point, is Grimnar, the Great Wolf. And, you know, like, a few other ranking members, like the High Iron Priest Hengist and stuff like that. Arjac walks in and just, like, carrying the suit of armor, this gigantic suit, just carrying it on his shoulder, and just puts it down in front of them. And Hengist obviously examines it, right? And the room has went silent. It's like bated breath. They're all waiting to see how they should react as Hengist examines this armor. And then just out of nowhere, he just proclaims, it is fixed. This is the armor of Arjac fucking Granite Brow. It's not like a destroyed heap anymore. This is it. This is exactly as it was the day he wore it into that battle. And also the room erupts with cheers, because everyone's like, fuck yeah, relic's fixed. Woo! And now, obviously,
let's go.
A new, like, rising hero within the chapter will be given that armor. This relic, fucking ancient, amazing fucking armor, now that it's been fixed. Which is great. It's a big thing. So they all start celebrating. And obviously, as you would expect, humble Arjac is like, no, I've got shit to do. I'm just going to go back to the forge, guys. But the reason that they were all feasting like this is that the whole chapter is going to war shortly, right? They're all going on a crusade. So they were celebrating before they go. So they're leaving very shortly. So since Arjac has passed the test of fixing this relic, he is given a very specific relic to work on, right? See, I'm going to show you this, right? This is Grimnar, right? This is the Great Wolf, the leader of the Space Wolves, right? Logan Grimnar, right? So he, you know, typically is shown with this fucking crazy-ass axe, right? This is his weapon. But shortly before this point, the weapon had been broken. The axe had been broken. And actually, just to let you know, I'll let you know how he got this axe, right? This axe, he stole it from the hands of a dead Khornate champion named Akor Doomflayer, right? So it was during the First War for Armageddon when the Space Wolves fought like Angron and his dudes, Grimnar like fought this Khornate champion to like a cliff edge, and then like gutted him and kicked him over the edge and yanked the axe from his hands at the same time. So he just had a new axe. But that means it's a demonic axe. So it's been like consecrated and stuff like that since then. But it was broken recently. So Grimnar has been using a different weapon. And he doesn't like using a different weapon. He wants his axe back. He's very set on his axe, okay? It's his axe, he'll keep it. But Arjac is now tasked with rebuilding this demonic axe for their chapter master, which is a huge thing, right? This is like the biggest challenge you can be given. Mainly because how the fuck do you reforge a demonic axe? That's where I would start. Like, I don't know how to reforge an axe in the first place, but when you add in demonic, I feel like there's a whole new part to this. So, Arjac is obviously told that he's going to be rebuilding this, but at the same time, he's also told that he's not coming on the crusade that they're all going on, because he has to stay back and rebuild the axe. This is more important. So, he's like, his brothers are all leaving him behind in this place on his own, basically. Which is really depressing. It's like really quite depressing to think that all your brothers are celebrating to go to war and you're left behind to fix an axe. But that's kind of how it goes. So Arjac is left behind to work on this project. And there is also a pack of Grey Hunters, so it's just a special rank of Space Wolves, that are left to act as guards for the Fang, right? Because they can't leave the place unattended, right? Someone has to guard it. And the rest of the Space Wolves all piss off. Everyone else just goes. They're all going to war. I should mention that that axe is fucking gigantic. Like, I don't know if you've noticed that. It's fucking huge. Also, the armor he is wearing is Terminator armor. It's tactical dreadnought armor. So, typically, a Space Marine cannot even lift the Axe of Mordecai, never mind, use it as a weapon. They need the additional kind of, support and strength provided by tactical dreadnought armor to be able to use it. That's why he has to, or he would be wearing the armor anyway, because he's, of an exalted rank, and that armor is seen as, a big deal, right? It's seen as, an honor. But he wouldn't be able to use the axe properly without it, is the thing. Which is quite fun. It's an important detail to throw out there. So, Arjac sets about his job of rebuilding the axe, because he's on his own now, and they're expecting it to be done by the time they get back, so he may as well just fucking get to it, right? And the first thing is, again, it's a demonic axe, so he has to, consecrate it so it doesn't, be all demony. And I guess, apparently, the best way to do that is with the blood of a god. So he just goes to the vault and gets the little vial of Lehman Russ's blood.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and just uses that to consecrate the shards of the axe, so he can rebuild it. And he just continues working on it bit by bit, doing whatever he can. But eventually he's interrupted by one of the Grey Hunters, one of these guards that are left around. And it turns out one of their people has been killed the night before. And basically they're just asking Arjac to join them in hunting down whatever intruder has miraculously killed one of the Space Wolves. Because Arjac's a fucking giant dude, and he is a Space Marine, right? So you're like, look, we're down a guy. We may as well have the giant blacksmith join us. You know what I mean? He might not be a Grey Hunter, but four guys and a giant blacksmith is still better than just four guys. I'd take him in any fight. I don't care what the fuck's going on. Unless it's in, cramped corridors. I'm not taking Arjac into, an underground maze. Fuck that. But, anything else, come with. So, they go on this, hunting mission around the Fang to try and find whatever the fuck has killed one of the Grey Hunters. And it ends up in this thing where they follow the scent of, because again they're all wolves, right? So they can hunt with their sense of smell. It's the whole thing. They follow its scent down into these like lava tunnels under the Fang, which, I mean, I can't say for certain, but if you call it lava tunnels, I'm gonna assume it's basically a labyrinth of small, like, weird tunnels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 So they end up in this big tunnel system under their base. And they split up to try and hunt this creature, because being that it's a labyrinth, there's a lot of splitting paths. And eventually, Arjac ends up with one of the Grey Hunters, a guy called Fornyot. And along their way, this creature just springs out of the shadows and, like, impales Fornyot in front of him, and then just snatches him up this big, like, tunnel up the way. So Arjac's just like, what the fuck was that? But like he only got like a you know, a quick glimpse of it, right? Because it was that fast and it came out of nowhere. So he gets like an idea of size and number of claws, but that's about it. He doesn't know what the hell it is. So, but he knows it went up because he saw it go up, right? So he just makes his way back up through the Fang until he gets to a bit where he can kind of smell it again, and he ends up in this like a chapel, basically, in like a small church. And it's to the God Emperor, obviously, but because it's in the Fang, there's a big like carving of Lehman Russ on the wall. And this is when he sees what the creature actually is, because it's clinging to this carving of Russ and carrying Fornyot still on its claws as he like tries to wriggle himself off. So there's a whole thing here where the creature kills Fornyot and then escapes, but in the process, it like gouges its claws into like the carving of Russ, and Arjac tries to launch his hammer at it to just like crush it like a bug on the wall, but misses and also destroys part of the carving of Russ. And they never fixed it, so to this day, that thing still has claw marks and a hammer mark in it, which is quite funny. But yeah, it turns out he sees it, so he knows what it is now, because this is the first time he's seen it like straight on in proper daylight, and it is a lictor. It's a Tyranid. Actually, I think I have I've got a picture of one. There you go. These are like the stealth like assassination Tyranids, so they're really good at like one-on-one combat and stuff like that. But they don't hunt in packs or anything. They tend to just kind of augment a pack or go on their own and murder, you know, like high-value targets and stuff. That's their whole thing, right? Take out the leader kind of stuff, because they're amazing at stealth. I'm going to go back to Arya, because that's what we're talking about, may as well. So, interestingly, as this creature, like, scuttles out of the church after, like, dumping Fornyot's body on the ground unceremoniously, Arjac screams after it, "I will suck out your eyeballs and dance on your guts." Just for the record. It's like the most boisterous thing this guy's ever said. Yeah. Which is a weird thing to say now that you've seen it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good. I can maybe do the dancing on your guts. I'm staying away from your eyeballs, though. I think there's far too many eyeballs. I'd be there all day. So, of course, Fornyot dies of his injuries because he was impaled for like 20 minutes there while Arjac found his way to a church, right? So, this becomes a whole thing where the other remaining Grey Hunters are like, we need to fucking kill this thing. Because their pack was the Fornyot pack. So, that guy was their leader. So, they're pissed. But now that Arjac knows what it is, he kind of goes and he does a bit of research while the other Grey Hunters continue to, like, hunt this thing to try and figure out where the fuck it's went. Because, like, I need to know what's going on here, right? It's weird that there's one Tyranid in the Fang. That's a strange thing. It's after something, right? And you'll probably remember about the Tyranids that they add biomass to themselves to, you know, make new Tyranids.
Yes.
But they can also adapt to basically anything. So if they kill a particular type of creature, they can take its, like, genetic traits. So, like, a wild creature with, like, a really good armored hide, or one that's, like, you know, better at, like, avoiding corrosion, stuff like that. The whole Tyranid fleet can adopt these traits. if they intake that kind of genetic material, right?
Yeah.
So, in his research, Arjac figures out that the reason this thing is here is probably to do that with the Space Wolves, like, genetic line, to take their beneficial features. And his initial thought is that it's here for the gene seed of the chapter, because it has, the genetics of Lehman Russ, who, for all intents and purposes, is a demigod. And if they get his genetics, they're probably going to become quite wolfy, but also a lot stronger and harder to kill. So that's probably a bad thing. But knowing that that's what it's after, they can lure it into a trap. So he comes up with a bit of a plan, and he goes to see the Grey Hunters to tell them the plan. And he turns up with two things, right? One of them is like under a sheet. He keeps it hidden, right? And the other thing is a book, right? And he comes up and he uses the book, which is about Tyranids, to explain what he thinks this particular Tyranid is here for. And he explains that the plan is they're going to lead it to the vault where all their gene seed is and just murder it. They're going to open the vault to use it as a trap, and they're just going to murder the fucking thing. Once they all kind of agree, he like whips the sheet off the other thing, and it's the Axe Morkai, fully rebuilt and ready to go. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to use this as my weapon. Let's fucking do this. Just hefts the Axe Morkai over his shoulder like it's nothing. Because he doesn't need Terminator armor to carry it, because he's fucking gigantic. So, that's pretty cool. So, you just got Arjac charging it in a weird, trappy setting for this fucking creature, wielding the Axe Morkai. So, they kind of go about their trap, right? They open the vault, they wait for the thing to come, battle ensues. Pretty standard stuff, right?
Yes.
And they're, obviously, battle is, gunfire, people swinging weapons at it, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, Arjac, chases it down as it tries to flee among all the gunfire and everything. It tries to, get out of the vault, because then it can escape into the Fang randomly, because it's the winding tunnel system dug into a mountain, right? So it can hide easily. As it tries to flee, because again, it's outnumbered, and these things are not great at, one-on-4 combat. It's one-on-one or nothing with these guys. So it tries to flee once it realizes it's getting peppered with bolter rounds from every angle, and Arjac's chasing it with a giant axe. So I'd probably run too.
Yeah.
So Arjac chases it down, pins it down with his bare fist, punches through its back into its spine, actually injures it quite a bit, but it sprays a poisonous mist. So it kind of throws him off. He's kind of wobbling on his feet a bit. His depth perception's fucked and stuff like that. And during this, Arjac tries to do a blind swing with Morkai and hits the door to the vault rather than the creature, shattering the axe again. He shatters the axe he just rebuilt. And unfortunately, one of the shards ends up pinned inside the lictor. So he continues to try and chase it, but it escapes. And now he can't fix the axe because it's missing a bit because it's stuck inside the lictor. So he kind of fucked up there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. There is a period where he chases it with his bare hands. He just dumps the axe and runs after it, but eventually loses it and just goes back to the last two guys that are still alive. So there, as a side story or a side part to this, right, there is a thing that goes on. You know how the whole chapter was going on this big crusade? Well, the warp didn't really play ball, and they ended up kind of just getting kicked back out near Fenris again. So they didn't actually manage to get to the crusade, so they ended up just coming back. And as it turns out, High Lord Hengist is a bit ahead of the rest of them, because the warp doesn't work normal. So they get word that he's coming back, and when he does arrive back, he finds the Grey Hunters and asks where the fuck Arjac is and what the fuck is happening, and where the Axe Morkai is. And they explain, everything that's happened, that there's a lictor run around, all this kind of stuff, and a bunch of their guys are dead, it's the whole thing. And while this is going on, Arjac's still hunting the bloody thing. He's just walking around with his fucking blacksmith and hammer looking for it. So I'm getting it one way or another. But eventually he has to just return to Hengist and, be told off. Because you can only secretly chase a lictor around for so long. So eventually, once Hengist does get a hold of him, he berates him for a while, and then basically just mocks him or bullies him, I guess, or berates him for his failings, his destruction of the axe again, and for the deaths of his brothers. Don't know how that was his fault, but he got blamed for it. Right? I don't know why. Hengist blamed him for the lictor killing their guys. Don't know where that came from. Misdirected anger, if ever I've heard it.
Coping.
Yeah, coping mechanism, definitely. But as a punishment, Hengist banishes Arjac back to the forges. He's like, just go to the fucking forges, we'll figure out what to do with you later, once we've dealt with this. And he also forbids him from hunting the lictor. He's like, no, leave it the fuck alone, you've done enough harm. Get the fuck back to the forge. So Arjac goes back to the forge, and he starts working on the Axe Morkai again, but obviously he can't finish it. He'll never be able to finish it, because he's missing part of it. But he just does what he can, right? So he uses the Blood of Rust to purify it again, and then starts rebuilding it as much as he can, that kind of stuff. It's just, busy work, right? To take his mind off what was going on. And it's during this time that he's just working at the forges, because it's 3 days that he's just working away. Because forging is meditation for him. It lets his mind kind of, go over some stuff. There is a serf, or a leader of the serfs, or thralls, slaves, whatever you want to call them, right? Comes to him and he's just like, oh, cool, it's good to see you here again, right? Because Arjac's cool with the humans, right? He's friends with them all. He's friends with everyone. He's a nice guy. And they're just chatting away for a while. And this thrall is a bit kind of mouthy. And you know what I mean? He doesn't hold to the chain of command for respect-wise. He talks a bit out of his station, right? So he's kind of just because Hengist is in charge doesn't mean you have to listen to him. You're also a space marine. Just go do what the fuck you want, man. What's he gonna do? But before Arjac can be watch your tone, little man, or whatever he would have said, before he can do it, he's just wait a minute, I can smell something. And he can smell seawater mixed with I don't know, bug smell, I guess, I don't know. So he goes out to the forges, and they're on these big slopes. The forges are dug into them, because it's a volcanic forge. So they just dug into a volcano. Right? So when you come outside, you're looking down a mountain to the ocean, and coming out of the ocean are a bunch of giant Tyranid monsters, a big variety of them that all look like they've adapted to be sea monsters, along with the general Tyranid swarm that comes with. And one of the creatures is this gigantic Biotitan, which I can show you, actually. Biotitan, there you go. This thing is fucking gigantic, by the way. One of them is this, but the lictor has attached itself to it. The lictor's commanding this shit using this thing. It's a weird situation, but it wants revenge. Clearly. So obviously this is quite a dangerous threat. So Arjac tells all the thralls to huddle up and guard the forges as best you can, right? Because they're humans though. They're normal humans. They're not going to do much against that, right? And he's but I'll be back for now. Right? So he just leaves them all to do their thing. And then the next thing is just charging full tilt back to the Fang across this mountainside. And he gets there and he goes to, High Iron Priest Hengist, who is currently in charge because he's the highest ranking arsehole there. And he's like, look, shit's going down. We kind of need to get involved here. And Hengist is like, absolutely not. We're going to hunker up on the walls and we're going to gun them down as they come towards us. Fuck the thralls and fuck the forges. So, Arjac's like, well, would you mind if I go get a more appropriate weapon? Because all I've got is my blacksmithing hammer. So do you mind if I go to the armories and just grab a proper weapon? And Hengist is like, sure, go, but get back here fast. And he's like, no bother. And then the next thing, the doors at the bottom of the wall they're standing on are opening, and Hengist is like, who the fuck is not listening to my orders? The next thing, he just sees fucking Arjac bolting full speed back to the forges. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, I gave you one job. Don't do that. So he gets, like, back to the forge, right? And, obviously, you have to understand that while this is going on, Hengist is livid, right? While he's running away again. Because all the space wolves on the walls see this happening. So they all start, like, talking shit about Arjac, about how, like, he's not a real space wolf and all this kind of stuff. How he's, like, an outcast to them. And Hengist is just raging because he's not doing what he's told. But Arjac makes it back to the forges where the thralls have been, like, you know, fighting off the first little bit of Tyranids with shotguns and stuff. And he explains to the thrall leader that that Hengist basically left him to die. And it's quite funny. There's a good bit where, like, he's like, look, I'll be honest with you, mate. Hengist is leaving you guys to die. He really doesn't give a shit about you. And he starts to be like, oh, well, you know, High Iron Priest Hengist, he has his reasons. And Arjac's like, dude, you're gonna die. Talk openly, right? There's no point being respectful in the face of an army of space bugs, right? Say what you want to say. And I have a quote here of what this random human says about the High Iron Priest. In that case, I think that Hengist Blackhand is a witch-begotten swine, not fit to lick the fleas from the mangiest alley cur. And if he were to stride into my forge and proclaim his valor in fighting alongside us, I would spit on his boots.
Nice.
Yeah. Get it up here, Hengist. So Arjac kind of starts to think of a plan to keep these thralls alive, right? Because the whole thing is he doesn't want to leave them to die. He's a nice guy, right? So what he needs to do is he needs to reach the main forge, though, right? Because they're in a smaller one at, like, a higher section. They need to work their way down the mountain towards the Tyranids to get into the main forge. And this is going to be an issue because the Tyranids are moving up the mountain to meet them, you know? So he kind of steels himself for a fight here because they're going to have to just go for it. It's full tilt or nothing here. So Arjac and about 200 or so thralls charge out of the forge and start fighting their way down the hillside. And as they're going, Arjac's, like, raising his hammer as if it's like a chapter banner to raise morale. And in this, like, oncoming horde, there are a bunch of larger beasts. And, you know, with the Tyranids, the larger ones typically, you know, give the rest of them cohesion. It's kind of like orcs, right? The big one, if you kill it, the rest of them kind of go a bit feral and useless. So, these are going to be the biggest part of it. So, one by one, Arjac, like, crushes his way down the mountain and eventually ends up meeting a Dactylus, right? I'll show you this. It's this big fucker here. This is one of the, like, generals of the Tyranid army, right? This is one of the big dogs. I'm not gonna, you know, go too much into this, but he rips its spine out of it from the back with his bare hand.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good way to kill that. It's basically 90% spine, so you may as well just pull it out. You know what I mean? It's basically just a long spine. If you just pull, it'll work. So yeah, he rips its spine out and then manages to get into the main forge. But once he's inside, he finds the second of these giant Tyranid beasts, the Zoanthrope. I only had a picture of the model for this one, but they're fucking big. They kind of float around and do some vaguely psychic bullshit. Again, these are volcanic forges, so there's a giant pool of lava in the middle of it, so Arjac just uses its tail to yeet it into the lava. Which, nice. I mean, that'll do it. That'll fucking do it. Now, Arjac has managed to retake the main forge, right? The reason he needed to get here is for two things, right? One of them is that this is where the Axe Morkai is, right? And obviously, he wants to protect that. He doesn't, even though it's not finished, he doesn't want it to be destroyed or damaged any further or lost or anything like that. But lying next to it is the vial of Lehman Russ's blood. Which, if the lictor is after Russ's genetics, that is the perfect thing. So he quickly pockets the vial of Lehman Russ's blood, which is, the main part of his plan right now. So he goes back out to continue this war against the Tyranids, right? And his brothers are still watching from the walls. They're not even in the fight yet. They're all just standing watching because Hengist won't let them go out. And they're like, they had been thinking that he was going out to get himself killed, when he ran back out because, because of his failings with the Axe Morkai or because he let his other brothers die while they were gone. Now they're like, oh, okay, he was going back to save this relic of the chapter, right? To get, the vial of Russ's blood. He's, he's trying to do a good thing here rather than just, pay penitence. He's actually trying to do something honourable. But nah, it's none of that. He walks out and in the middle of the field, opens the vial of blood and just holds it into the air to get the lictor's attention. So the next thing, the lictor, which is attached to the back of this fucker, starts charging towards him. And, Arjac just lets it eat him whole. He just lets this giant creature swallow him whole. The last thing, he doesn't fight back against it. All he does is, recap the bottle of Russ's blood and, back in the pocket.
Oh.
That's it. So they're all like, what the fuck was that? They're all watching, the fuck is he doing? He wasn't going to kill it, because it's, it takes, 10 Space Marines to drop one of these fuckers, because it's gigantic. But they're even then, at least swing your hammer, you fucking idiot. What the fuck was that? What was the point in saving the relic only to let it be eaten by the thing you didn't want to eat it? That was just stupid. So, that's the whole thing. Arjac's fucking gone. He got eaten by this thing, so that's it. Now, Arjac is not a dumb man, right? So there was a plan here. See, you know how he said that he was going to go and grab a more appropriate weapon before he went back out to fight?
Yeah.
He actually did go get a more appropriate weapon. It just wasn't a sword or a shield or a gun or anything like that. It was, within the trophy vaults, there is the body of an assassin, a master poisoner, who tried to kill the Great Wolf years prior. He just went and stole a bottle of poison off of it that was designed to kill the Great Wolf. And he's like, this'll probably do it. So once he's inside the thing, he just dumps the poison.
Yeah.
Obviously, he infects himself with it too, so it is a suicide mission. But it's gonna kill this big fucker.
Yeah.
But obviously no one watching knows any of this, so he's still going to get digested inside the thing and die of the poison. But that thing, pretty quickly after swallowing Arjac, just flops sideways dead.
Nice.
And being that the lictor had attached itself to it, it's dying too.
Nice.
Yeah, so it goes pretty well. There is one giant Tyranid left, but the rest of them are kind of becoming a bit of a shambles because all their bosses are dying. It is at this point that the rest of the Space Wolves kind of get back, including Logan Grimnar, the Great Wolf, who just is hurtling down to the planet in a drop pod at the time, and he basically gets on the radio and just starts mocking Hengist. He's like, the fuck are you doing, Hengist? There is a giant army of space bugs right outside and you're hiding on the fucking walls. Get in the fight, you idiot! So the next thing, there's drop pods coming down all over the place, and Space Wolves charging out to go battle the Tyranid horde. And Grimnar himself comes up against the last of the giant fucking space bugs and just guts it with his sword. And then, obviously, between the Thralls and the Space Wolves and everything, they manage to kind of finish off the rest of the army that now are leaderless and kind of feral.
Yeah.
So there is this whole thing, with the battle over, Grimnar goes to Hengist, who is now, joined into the fight, and is like, where the hell's Arjac? And Hengist kind of, how do I explain this? And then he kind of explains that he's dead, because he was eaten by this giant bio-titan, and also the axe was shattered again, and, everything else, right? It's been a bit of a shit show while you've been gone, boss. And, the Great Wolf says nothing. He just walks over to the Bio Titan, climbs on top of it, slices it open with his sword, and then just climbs inside. And everyone's just watching, like, what the fuck is this nutcase doing? Why is everyone going crazy when they look at this Bio Titan? Why does everyone want to be inside it so badly? It's not that cold. Like, what's happening? But no one, like, questions it. They're all just staring on, confused. Then after a little bit, the jaws of the Bio Titan, like, break open. And the next thing, Grimnar, like, shoulders his way out, carrying Arjac. And he, like, lays him down in the snow. And he's like, what the fuck are you guys all staring at? Get a medic! Come on! And eventually one of the medics finally come over and realize the dude's still alive. Arjac is, like, one of his hearts is still pumping. So this dude is still technically alive. And after a minute, the Great Wolf is like, you guys are shit at this. Like, you're medics. Take him to the fucking medical bay. Why are we leaving him in the snow? It's like, fuck this. The Great Wolf just hefts him over his shoulder and carries him to the medical bay himself. So you guys are fucking more than... Why do I pay you people? So you guys are all fucking worthless today. So they get him inside and put him on, like, a surgery table so they can start, like, looking him over. Hook him up to, like, vital monitors, usual stuff. And they find out he is still alive. He's just struggling with the poison. And they start, like, stripping off his armor so they can, like, treat his wounds and stuff. And they have to strip his gauntlets piece by piece because his hands are clenching solid around something. And they strip one of his gauntlets and find that he's still holding the vial of Russ's blood.
Yeah.
So he's managed to actually save the relic of the chapter. And in the other hand, when they finally manage to take his gauntlet apart, they find the missing shard of Morkai stabbed into his hand because he's gripping it that tight. So when the lictor had attached itself to the Bio Titan, the shard had, like, made its way into the Titan, like, through its body. So Arjac had, like, crawled through the inside of this Titan to find it while being, like, while dying from the poison. But once he had got his hand on it, he gripped it so tight that it, like, stabbed into his hand and he would not let go. He still has a scar on his hand because of that. Like, it will never heal properly, even though he's a space marine, because it's a demonic axe that did it. But yeah, he ends up, like, on this table for days, right? But the thing is that Grimnar knows all the stories of Arjac, right? Because he's the Great Wolf. He hears everything about his guys, right? The reason that he didn't hear Arjac was swallowed by that monster and go, oh, well, he's definitely dead then. The reason he went and cut it open to get Arjac is because he knew he'd still be alive. Because of all the stories about him. He didn't die from the fucking vial heart pox. He didn't die from a fucking blizzard. You know what I mean? This guy will survive anything. A Bio Titan eating him is not enough to kill this dude. Which is why he immediately went to cut it open and get him out. He's like, he's gonna be fine. I'll get him. So you guys are fucking idiots. But obviously, had Arjac boasted more of all the things he had done, everyone else probably would have assumed the same thing. But he's that humble, it almost was his death, interestingly. After Arjac actually does recover a bit and he finally wakes up on this table, he immediately just gets up, goes back to the forge, and finishes remaking Morkai. And when he goes and, like, presents it to the Great Wolf, Logan Grimnar immediately promotes him to the rank of his personal guard. And since that day, Arjac Rockfist has not been an Iron Priest. He has been the personal guard to the Great Wolf himself. So now, whenever Logan Grimnar, the Great Wolf, marches into battle alongside him, he has Arjac Rockfist, the Anvil of Fenris, at his side.
Damn.
There you go. That is how he became who he is. It's a long story. There's a lot to it, but, like, it's a fucking good story. And I'm dying for more to come out about this guy. We need him to become a main character for a bit again. You know? It'll just.
I mean, yeah, it'll probably happen at some point.
It's just a matter of time.
It is leading up to it. Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
They're currently doing a series of like books about kind of major secondary characters. So like there was a book that was specifically just Gazgul Thraka, Prophet of the Wa.
Yeah.
There is Shadow Sun, who is one of the Tau generals. There is I can't remember the rest of them. I actually have most of the books. Lelith Hesperex, one of the Drukhari, stuff like that. They're doing like individual novels about a bunch of these people as like they did a series that were like individual books about the Primarchs. It's a similar thing to that, just about, lesser but still very important characters. There's one about Eidolon coming out. I've actually just pre-ordered the special edition because it's purple and it looks cool and I wanted it. You know what I'm like with collecting special edition books for Warhammer. But we might actually get one of those about Arjac, which would be very cool.
Yeah.
But I would like to see that.
Time will tell.
But I don't know what's going to happen with it. I think Arjac probably will get to stand out a bit at some point, but unfortunately, he's just kind of this, like, really cool secondary character at the moment. He does
Only
turn up
time
in a
will
bunch
tell,
of
man.
books as, like, a figure of wisdom. Someone will go and talk to him, and he'll set them straight and stuff like that. Because he's just this, like, stoic giant that just... You know what I mean? He's so calm and like measured and leveled and stuff like that people go to him with advice when everything's fucked, and he's just like, I mean, you can just chill the fuck out and just handle it. It's always an option. So he turns up a lot, but like I want to see him in charge for a bit. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that aside, that is the end of our first Outcast episode requested by you guys.
Oh yeah.
So I would like to do more of these. So any more requests are very welcome.
Yeah, leave a comment if you're watching from YouTube.
Yes.
I think that's the only place people can comment, right?
I can put it as a question, as like a request on Spotify. Like you can do polls and stuff like that, or Q&As. So I can put it as a Q&A on there so that people can respond to it and suggest stuff.
Well then, leave a comment. There's no excuse then, guys. Yeah. Right. Do you want me to round it off then?
Go for it.
Well, thank you guys for listening to the first Outcast episode of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast. It's been me, Mess and Ryan, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care and peace.
Bye.